The crash and the encounter. The night sky above the frozen moon was silent, filled with silver clouds and burning streaks of fire. A human ship broke apart in the atmosphere, pieces falling like dying stars when everything stopped moving. Only one survivor breathed under the wreckage. His name was Ethan Cole, a pilot of the Terran Expedition Fleet. He opened his eyes to smoke and darkness, hearing the low hum of alien winds around him. His body hurt, his suit was cracked, and his communicator was dead outside. Lightning crawled across the ice plains, bright blue and sharp like claws. He tried to stand, but pain hit him again, forcing him back to the floor. That was when he heard it. Voices, soft, melodic, and not human. Two shadows appeared at the edge of the firelight. Moving carefully, they spoke in a strange rhythm, their language flowing like music. Ethan froze, heart pounding, realizing they were not rescuers. Through the smoke, he saw them clearly. Two alien sisters, tall and graceful, with pale luminous skin and eyes that glowed like amethyst. One carried a spear made of light, the other a glowing device that hummed softly. They stopped near his body, thinking he was dead. Ethan quickly closed his eyes again and slowed his breathing. Pretending to be unconscious, the older sister's voice was firm, filled with caution. "He's human, Sarah. We should leave him," the younger one whispered back, her tone full of curiosity. "But look at him, Lyra, he's hurt. He's small for a warrior." Their words were strange, but their tone told a story of fear mixed with wonder. Ethan lay still, listening, understanding only fragments from the translator inside his helmet. The younger one stepped closer, touching the cracked surface of his armor. Her hand trembled as she felt the steady beat of his heart through the suit. "It's warm," she said softly. "It beats like ours." Ethan felt her hand linger, his pulse racing faster. Lyra grabbed her sister's wrist and pulled her back. "Don't touch it, Sarah. Humans are dangerous. They burn worlds." The words stung even though Ethan didn't move. He wanted to speak, to explain, but he knew showing life might mean death. Through his half-closed visor, he watched them argue. Their skins shimmered with faint light each time they breathed, as if their bodies drew power from the air itself. Sarah looked down again, her eyes soft. "He's dying, Lyra. Even monsters feel pain." The older sister sighed, looking at the wreckage around them. The silence between them stretched like the wind itself. Finally, Lyra turned away. "We take him to the shelter," she said. "But if he wakes, you end him." Ethan almost gasped. But he stayed perfectly still. They lifted him carefully with strange magnetic bands that floated him above the ice. As they moved, the world blurred, cold and bright. He heard their voices echo through the storm, arguing about rules and mercy. Through the haze of pain, Ethan wondered who these sisters were, saviors or executioners. But deep inside, curiosity burned brighter than fear. He wanted to know why they were helping a human when their kind hated his species. Hours later, they reached a cave glowing with blue crystals. The air inside was warm, almost alive. They laid him on a stone bed, removing parts of his armor to treat the wounds. Sarah mixed a thick green paste and spread it gently across his ribs. Ethan bit his lip to stay silent as the medicine burned like fire. Lyra watched from a distance, her eyes cold. "You're risking too much." "Sarah," she warned, "if our people find out, they'll brand us traitors." "Then let them," Sarah replied. "I won't watch another living thing die." The cave trembled as a storm raged outside. Sarah covered him with a heat blanket made of silver threads. She sat beside him, her glowing eyes studying his face with strange fascination. "His skin looks fragile," she murmured. "Yet he survived the fall." Lyra didn't answer. Standing at the mouth of the cave with her weapon ready, scanning the horizon, Ethan felt every word, every heartbeat. He realized these sisters were alone, afraid yet strong. He wanted to trust them, but the galaxy had taught him one truth. Kindness always came with a cost. When the storm finally calmed, Lyra turned back inside. "We leave at dawn, we'll find the others. Maybe they'll forgive us for this." Sarah lowered her head. "And the human? If he wakes," Lyra said slowly, "everything changes." Ethan's eyes stayed closed, but his mind raced. What did she mean? Why would his waking change anything? Outside, thunder echoed again, hiding the faint sound of Sarah's whisper. "I hope he dreams of peace," she said, her voice soft as snow. Ethan listened to the words fade into the wind. He lay still beneath the silver blanket, pretending to sleep while his heart beat louder. He didn't know what the sisters would do if they learned he was awake. But one thing was clear. The moment his eyes opened, His fate and perhaps theirs would never be the same. The silent shelter. The blue light of dawn crept into the crystal cave, spreading across the floor like liquid glass. Ethan lay still beneath the thin silver blanket, every muscle tense, pretending to sleep. Outside, the alien wind howled like a living creature, carrying whispers through the sharp mountain air. He could hear the sisters' voices echoing softly, one firm and cold, the other gentle and uncertain. "We can't keep him here," Lyra said. "If the patrols scan the valley, they'll find us." "He's still hurt," Sarah replied. "He won't survive out there." Their words mixed with the sound of crackling firestones, small crystals burning without smoke. Ethan's heart beat faster, but he didn't move. He wanted to learn their plan, and more than that, he wanted to understand why they were helping him. Through the slit of his visor, he watched them. Lyra was tall, her silver hair tied back, her armor cracked but polished. Every motion sharp and trained. Sarah was different, smaller, softer. Her movements hesitant, as if she carried a heart too gentle for her world. Ethan noticed how she looked at him when she thought no one was watching. Her gaze wasn't curiosity anymore. It was worry, almost guilt. The storm outside had calmed, but something in the air felt heavy, a pressure, a silence before danger. When Lyra left the cave to scout the ridge, Sarah knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she checked the wound she'd healed. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim light. "You're stronger than I thought, human," she whispered. "Most of your kind would have died." Ethan forced his breathing to remain slow, but inside, he felt her voice sink into his thoughts. There was no hatred in her tone, only wonder, maybe even admiration. She reached out and touched his cheek gently. "Lyra says your kind destroyed 1,000 stars," she murmured, "but you look fragile." Her hand lingered for a second too long. Her eyes softening, Ethan wanted to open his eyes. To tell her not all humans were monsters, but he couldn't, not yet. The silence was broken by a sharp sound from outside, metal scraping against rock. Sarah froze, her glow dimming in fear. Moments later, Lyra rushed back inside, her face pale. "They're here," she said, her voice low but urgent. "Scouts, Keth hunters, tracking energy signatures." Sarah's eyes widened. "They'll sense the crash. Yes, and if they find him, we're finished." Lyra's gaze shifted toward Ethan's still form. "We should end this now, Sarah." "Before they find out we helped him." Sarah stepped back, shaking her head. "No. He's not like them. He's alone, hurt. So were the children on Arthra before humans came," Lyra snapped. "And you saw what your mercy cost them." The argument tore through the cave like thunder. Ethan felt every word pierce deeper than his wound. He wanted to rise, to speak, but fear anchored him. If he revealed himself now, they might panic and, or worse, kill him before hearing the truth. He listened as Lyra turned away, her voice cracking for the first time. "If they find him alive, Sarah, they'll burn our names from the stones, and you know what that means." Sarah's voice broke too. "Then let them burn me." Outside, the wind screamed louder, as if warning them that time was running out. Lyra grabbed her weapon and headed for the entrance. "I'll draw them away," she said. "If I'm not back by nightfall." "You know what to do," Sarah's lips trembled. But she nodded. Then she turned back toward Ethan, kneeling beside him once more. "You hear that?" she whispered softly, as if to herself. "She'll die for me, and I'll die for you." Ethan's pulse quickened, her words filling him with guilt and awe. He realized this wasn't just kindness, it was rebellion. These sisters were risking their lives for a stranger their world hated. Hours passed in tense silence. Sarah moved restlessly around the cave, checking sensors, watching the horizon. Ethan's body ached, but his mind was sharper than ever. He studied the way her hands trembled each time a light flickered outside. Then suddenly the ground shook. A distant explosion rolled across the valley. Sarah ran to the entrance, eyes wide. "Lyra," she whispered, fear bleeding through her voice. The sky outside burned orange as alien crafts descended, their light sweeping the ridges like hunting beasts. She turned back to Ethan, panic and desperation mixing in her expression. "I can't protect you," she said, tears glimmering in her alien eyes. "Not if they find us." For a moment she stared down at him, her chest rising and falling fast. Then slowly, she reached for the small blade at her belt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice shaking. "If I kill you, they might spare her." Ethan felt his heart pound so loud he feared she'd hear it. He couldn't pretend anymore, not now. His eyes snapped open, his hand shot up. grabbing her wrist just as the blade came down. Sarah gasped, the blade clattering to the ground. For a moment neither moved, their faces inches apart, her eyes glowing in shock. "You," she breathed. "You were awake." Ethan's voice was weak but steady. "And you were about to kill me." Her lips parted. Trembling, "I had no choice," she whispered. "They would have killed us both." Ethan looked into her frightened eyes and saw something deeper. Fear. Yes, but also sorrow and hope tangled together. He slowly released her wrist. "Then don't let them," he said quietly. "Help me fight." Outside, the sound of approaching engines grew louder. Sarah turned toward the light of the incoming ships, her hands shaking, her mind torn. For the first time, Ethan sat up fully, blood still seeping from his wound, but his eyes burning with purpose. "If they find us," he said, "they'll kill us both anyway." The air crackled as Sarah stared at him. A human who refused to die. Her fear turned to something else. Defiance. She nodded once, a spark lighting behind her glowing eyes. "Then we fight," she whispered. The camera of the story would fade out here. A wounded human and an alien girl standing together against the glow of an enemy fleet approaching the mountains. The silence before the storm had ended, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when mercy met fire. The heartbeat in the dark. The sky outside burned red as the alien ships circled above the valley, their searchlights cutting through the mist like blades. Inside the cave, the air was heavy with silence, thick with the scent of ash and fear. Sarah stood near the entrance, her silver hair glowing faintly under the blue light, hands trembling around her energy staff. Behind her, Ethan leaned against the cave wall, his wound half healed but his strength still fading. The two of them barely spoke, yet their eyes carried every word they couldn't say. He had broken his silence, and now nothing could be undone. She knew the truth. The human was awake, alive, and dangerous. And he knew hers. The alien girl who once tried to kill him had chosen to fight beside him. A strange bond tied them together now, woven from fear, guilt, and something neither could name. "How long do we have before they find this place?" Ethan asked quietly. Sarah didn't look at him, her gaze fixed on the red horizon. "Not long," she said. "The Keth track by energy scent. They can follow even a heartbeat." Her voice trembled as she said it, and Ethan noticed. He took a step closer, speaking softly. "Then you should run." She turned sharply, her eyes burning. "And leave you here to die?" "No." Her defiance caught him off guard. This delicate alien girl was fiercer than he imagined. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains as metal birds screamed through the clouds. Ethan checked his weapon. A cracked plasma pistol. Half charged and fading, Sarah watched him, tilting her head slightly. "That thing won't save you," she said. "Then I'll make it scare them," Ethan replied. A faint smile on his face, she almost smiled back. But her voice turned softer. "You humans never stop fighting, even when it's useless." "Maybe that's why we're still alive," he said quietly. The storm grew louder, and a strange vibration filled the cave, like the world itself was holding its breath. Sarah suddenly turned toward him, her eyes wide. "Hide your heartbeat," she whispered. "They can feel it," Ethan frowned. "How do you hide a heartbeat?" She moved closer, placing her glowing hand over his chest. "Like this," she said, closing her eyes. Warmth spread through him, a pulse of soft light flowing from her palm into his skin. For a moment his heart slowed, calm and weightless. He could feel her energy inside him, her rhythm syncing with his. Time seemed to stop, their breaths falling into the same quiet pattern. Ethan looked down at her face. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, her lips parted in focus. He felt the beat of two hearts, hers and his, blending for a single moment. The sound filled the silence, gentle but powerful. Then Sarah opened her eyes and stepped back quickly, breaking the connection. Her cheeks glowed faintly with color. Her voice unsteady. "There," she whispered. "They won't sense you now." Ethan exhaled slowly, unsure what he had just felt. It was more than alien technology, it was something living, something pure. But before he could speak, the cave shook violently. Dust raining from the ceiling, Sarah froze, her eyes darkening with dread. "They've found us," she said. From outside came the sound of boots, metallic, echoing in perfect rhythm. Lyra's voice cut through the static on Sarah's communicator. "Sarah, listen to me. They caught my signal. I'm leading them away. Stay hidden." "Lyra, no!" Sarah cried, but the transmission crackled out. Ethan's jaw tightened. She's baiting them away from us. She'll die if they catch her, Sarah whispered. Her voice breaking, Ethan picked up his pistol and checked the chamber. Then let's not let that happen. Sarah turned to him, eyes wide. You can barely stand. I don't need to stand, he said, pushing forward. I just need to shoot straight. The light from outside turned crimson. The Keth patrol had landed near the ridge, their shadows tall and sharp. Ethan crawled to the cave entrance. Peering through the mist, Sarah followed, her weapon glowing faintly in her hands below them. 5 armored figures moved in formation. Scanning the wreckage, Ethan aimed his pistol, his finger hovering on the trigger. Wait, Sarah said, grabbing his arm. They have a sensor drone. If you shoot, it will find us. He lowered the weapon reluctantly. So what do we do? Her answer came in a whisper. We use the dark. Before Ethan could question her, the crystals in the cave dimmed completely. Total blackness surrounded them. He could only hear her breathing and the soft hum of energy from her body. Then suddenly the ground beneath them split open. They fell into an ancient tunnel below, a forgotten passage glowing faintly with alien runes. Ethan hit the floor hard, gasping, while Sarah landed gracefully beside him. What is this place? He asked, staring at the glowing walls. Sarah hesitated, her eyes scanning the ancient carvings. Our ancestors built it, she said softly. A sanctuary for those who believed humans were not our enemies. Ethan looked at her in surprise. You mean there were others? Like you. Once, she said, voice heavy with sorrow. But mercy was a crime that killed them all. A strange hum echoed from deeper in the tunnel. Rhythmic, alive. Sarah's face paled. Something's still awake down here, she whispered. Ethan raised his pistol, the faint light of its scope cutting through the mist. Alive? He asked. Not alive, she said, her voice trembling. Hungry. A sudden roar echoed through the darkness, ancient and cold. The walls shook, and a shadow larger than any human moved at the far end of the corridor. Ethan and Sarah exchanged one terrified glance and then ran. Their footsteps echoed as the tunnel behind them collapsed in a storm of dust and blue fire. Whatever slept beneath the mountain had awakened, and for the first time since he crashed, Ethan realized that the sisters' secret wasn't just kindness. It was forbidden knowledge, and now it was hunting them both. The truth revealed darkness pressed against the walls of the tunnel, the air thick with dust and fear. Ethan's breath came fast, echoing between the ancient stones. Sarah's hand glowed dimly ahead of him, a fragile light guiding them through the unknown. Behind them, the roar of the awakened creature still shook the earth, but something even colder than terror grew inside Ethan, a question that would not die. Why had these sisters risked everything to save a human? The tunnel opened into a vast chamber carved from obsidian rock. Thousands of glowing runes circled the walls like living veins. In the center stood an old structure, a crystal monolith cracked with age. Pulsing faintly like a dying heart, Sarah fell to her knees before it. Whispering words in her language, Ethan stepped closer, his pistol raised in case the beast returned. What is this place? He asked. Her voice trembled as she answered. This is where the truth was buried, the truth our people feared. Before Ethan could speak again, a faint light flickered in the monolith. A holographic image formed, a tall alien woman, wearing ancient armor with the same crest that shimmered on Sarah's cloak. Her tone was soft but full of command. To any who find this, know that humans were never our enemy. Ethan froze. His heart pounding, the message continued. They came to help us, to heal our world. But our leaders chose fear over truth, and we destroyed them for it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She was our mother, she whispered. Ethan turned toward her in shock. Your mother? Yes, she said, her voice breaking. She believed in peace with your kind, and they executed her for it. The hologram flickered again, showing fire, ships, and the fall of cities. Sarah covered her face, her shoulders shaking. We were just children, she whispered. I saw them take her away. I swore we'd never forget what she died for. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Not pity, but respect. So you helped me, he said softly. Because you wanted to finish what she started. Sarah nodded, her eyes glimmering with both grief and hope. A sudden crackle of static broke the moment. Lyra's voice cut through their comms, harsh and desperate. Sarah, get out of there. The Keth found me. They have a war drone. The sound of explosions filled the line before it went silent. Sarah screamed, her glow flaring bright blue. Without thinking, she ran back toward the tunnel. Ethan caught her arm, but she pulled free, tears streaming down her face. "She's all I have left. She won't want you to die, too," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "Then come with me," she pleaded, and before he could refuse, she was gone, racing up the tunnel toward the light. Ethan followed, limping, his pistol in hand. When they emerged into the open air, the sight before them stole their breath. The sky was a storm of fire, two massive war drones hovering above the ridge, their cannons glowing with red energy. Lyra stood alone between them and the wreck of Ethan's ship, her armor cracked, her weapon glowing bright as a star. She had no chance, but she did not run. "Go back, Sarah," she shouted over the wind. Sarah ignored her, rushing forward, her hands already forming a barrier of blue light. The drones fired, blinding rays of heat cutting through the mountain air. The blast hit the ground where Sarah had stood, throwing Ethan to the snow when he looked up. A single figure still stood through the smoke, Lyra shielding her sister with her body. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, blood running down his arm. He raised his pistol and fired at the nearest drone, the beam hitting its sensor and forcing it to recoil. "Come on," he yelled. "Over here!" The second drone turned toward him, its cannon charging again. Ethan kept firing, each shot weaker than the last until the weapon clicked empty. The machine aimed straight for him, the barrel glowing red, but before it could fire, a scream cut through the air and a sound not of fear, but rage. Sarah stood behind him, her hands raised, her eyes burning with pure energy. Blue light poured from her palms, cracking the ice beneath their feet. The blast hit the drone like a hammer of lightning, tearing it in half. When the smoke cleared, Sarah collapsed to her knees, her body drained of energy. Ethan caught her before she fell, his hands shaking. "You'll kill yourself doing that." "She's my sister," she whispered, her voice faint. They turned toward the ridge where Lyra stood, barely breathing. She smiled weakly when she saw them. "So, the human finally woke up," she said. Coughing blood, Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "And he's not leaving without you." The ground shook again, and Ethan realized something else. The beast from below had followed them. A massive shape rose behind the ridge, black as night, its eyes burning with ancient fire. Sarah's voice was a whisper of terror. "It's awake." Lyra forced herself to stand, her weapon glowing once more. "Then we finish what Mother started," she said. Ethan looked at them both, realizing this was more than a battle for survival. It was a war for truth. For the soul of their world, he gripped his pistol tighter, turning to face the creature as the sky split open with lightning. "Let's show them," he said, "what humans and sisters can do together." The camera of the story would zoom out now. 3 figures standing against a storm of fire and monsters. The truth was no longer hidden, and the galaxy was about to remember the name of the family that dared to defy its own empire. The healing bond snow drifted down over the smoking valley, glowing blue under the shattered light of the moons. The creature's roar still echoed in the distance, fading like thunder rolling through the bones of the mountains. Ethan stumbled forward, his chest burning, his arm wrapped around Sarah's trembling body. Her energy was fading fast, her once glowing veins now dim and cracked like dying stars beneath her skin. Lyra limped behind them, every breath a struggle, yet her eyes stayed fixed on her sister. They reached a hollow in the rocks, a small alcove where the fire still burned faintly. Ethan lowered Sarah carefully onto the ground, her pulse weak beneath his fingers. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice low but desperate. Sarah opened her eyes, the glow flickering like a candle fighting the wind. "It hurts," she said softly. "I used too much power." Lyra knelt beside her, shaking her head. "Foolish girl," she murmured, voice breaking. "You were never meant to hold that much energy." She looked at Ethan, her expression torn between anger and fear. "Human, your people have medkits. Use them." Ethan glanced at his broken pack, half melted from the heat. "They're gone," he said. "All I have is this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver capsule, a nanite patch designed to heal minor wounds. It wasn't meant for aliens, and it might help or it might kill her. But Sarah's breath was growing shallower by the second. Ethan pressed it gently against her skin, whispering, "Don't fight it. Trust me." The nanite spread through her veins like liquid mercury. Pulsing faintly, Sarah gasped, her back arching as light spread across her chest. Lyra started forward. "What are you doing to her?" "Saving her," Ethan growled, "or dying trying." The air shimmered around Sarah as the nanites merged with her energy. Blue and silver light blending together, Ethan felt static dance across his fingertips. A heartbeat that wasn't his. The light grew so bright it filled the cave, then faded slowly. Sarah lay still, her breathing even, her skin glowing gently once more. Ethan let out a long breath and leaned back, exhaustion pulling at him. Lyra stared at her sister, eyes wide. "She's stable," she whispered. "How?" Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess our science and your magic aren't that different." Hours passed, the fire crackling softly. Outside, the wind screamed through the cliffs. Carrying the scent of ash and metal, Lyra sat near the entrance, keeping watch while Ethan rested beside Sarah. When he opened his eyes again, she was awake, staring at him. Her eyes were softer now, less like weapons, more like windows to something new. "You risked your life for me," she said quietly. "You did the same," he replied. She smiled faintly. "I was supposed to hate your kind," she said. "But when I look at you, I don't feel hate. I feel something I can't name." Before he could answer, the communicator on Lyra's wrist crackled to life. A cold metallic voice filled the air. "Lyra of House Vareth, you are charged with treason and alliance with human life forms. Surrender now or be purged." Lyra's expression hardened. "They've tracked us," she said, standing up. Sarah tried to rise, but Ethan stopped her. "You're not strong enough. If they catch us, none of us will matter," she said, her voice shaking. Lyra gripped her weapon tightly, her glow flaring bright white. "They won't take us alive," she said. Ethan stood beside her, his jaw set. "Then they'll wish they hadn't come." Moments later, a blinding beam of light split the sky. Enemy ships descending fast. Ethan's wrist tracker beeped, a weak human signal blinking on its display. His eyes widened. "That's my fleet," he said, disbelief in his voice. "They found me." Lyra turned sharply. "More humans. Rescue team. If we reach them, we live." But Sarah shook her head. "They'll never let me go. Your people will see me as the enemy." Ethan crouched beside her. "Then I'll make them see you as what you are and my ally." She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "You'd fight your own for me?" "You fought your own for me first," he said simply. The roar of engines grew louder. Shadows of alien soldiers sweeping across the rocks. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "If you mean to protect her, human, then you'll need to prove it. My people will not listen to words." Ethan met her gaze. "Then let's give them something they can't ignore." He looked toward the ridge where the creature's glow still pulsed faintly beneath the ice. A dangerous idea formed in his mind, something wild, something human. "If we lead that thing toward the Keth," he said, "it'll tear through their lines before they even reach us." Lyra stared at him, shocked. "You'd use the beast?" "No," Ethan said, "I'll wake it." The sisters exchanged a silent look. Fear, disbelief, and then resolve. Sarah reached for his hand, her fingers warm and trembling. "If we do this," she whispered, "we don't get a second chance." Ethan's eyes met hers. "I know," he said, "but sometimes the only way to survive is to make the stars remember your name." They moved out into the storm together. The wounded human and the alien sisters, their lights cutting through the dark, their hearts beating the same silent rhythm above them. Fleets of both species turned their guns toward the frozen planet, unaware that 3 rebels were about to change the fate of 2 worlds. And deep beneath the mountain, the ancient creature stirred again, its eyes opening slowly, reflecting the light of human defiance. The last stand. The wind screamed through the jagged peaks like a warning from the gods. Ethan stood at the edge of the cliff, staring into the dark maw of the valley below, where the ancient creature stirred beneath the ice. Its heartbeat echoed through the ground and slow, thunderous and alive. The alien fleet above the clouds drew closer, hundreds of ships blotting out the stars. Behind him, Sarah's soft glow flickered weakly. Her energy still recovering, Lyra stood tall beside her, armor cracked but spirit unbroken, her eyes burning with the same fire that lived in her mother's last words. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "No," Ethan said with a faint grin, "but I've been making bad decisions since I woke up on this moon." Lyra gave a short, sharp laugh, the first real laugh since the crash. "Human madness," she muttered. "Mother was right. It burns brighter than logic." Her gaze turned to the horizon where red light glimmered, the Keth army's landing, spreading like shadows across the snow. "They'll reach us in minutes," she said. "Then we wake our monster," Ethan replied, his tone steady. He climbed down toward the ancient fissure glowing faintly beneath the ice, his boots crunching through frost. Every vibration of the creature's heart sent a tremor up his legs. He knelt beside a rune-covered crystal, the same symbols from the chamber below, and pressed his hand against it. A surge of energy pulsed through him, cold and electric. Visions flashed before his eyes. Memories of the creature's creation. Human scientists and alien mystics working together long ago, before the war, before fear destroyed everything. They made this together, he whispered. Humans and your kind. It wasn't a weapon, it was a guardian. Sarah's eyes widened. A guardian of what? Of peace, he said, standing slowly. And we're going to remind it what it was built for. The ice cracked beneath their feet, glowing veins spreading like lightning across the valley floor. A deafening roar split the sky. The creature awoke fully now, its body rose from the chasm. Colossal and luminous, half flesh and half energy, eyes like dying stars. The air bent around its form. Bending sound and light, even the alien ships above faltered, their formation breaking in panic. You woke it! Lyra shouted, shielding her face from the wind. No, Ethan said. I called it. The creature turned its massive head toward them, ancient intelligence burning in its gaze. Sarah stepped forward slowly, her voice shaking but clear. We don't want war, she said. We want peace, and the peace our mother died for. The creature's eyes flickered, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat syncing with hers. Then the Keth ships opened fire, beams of red energy raining down across the mountains. Ethan tackled Sarah to the ground as explosions ripped through the cliffs. Lyra stood her ground, her energy shield crackling as she deflected the blast. Go, she shouted. Get her to safety. Not without you, Sarah screamed. Now, Lyra roared, her power flaring brighter than ever before. Ethan grabbed Sarah and dragged her behind a ridge as the sky erupted into chaos. The creature bellowed, swinging its tail through the air, destroying half the fleet in a single strike. The shockwave flattened entire ridges, throwing snow and fire into the heavens. Lyra stood before the storm, her energy blazing blue-white, her silhouette framed by lightning. She was no longer just a sister. She was a legend. She turned once toward Sarah and Ethan, her lips forming silent words. Live for her. Then she charged, merging her energy with the creature's, their light fusing into a single explosion that swallowed the sky. The entire battlefield froze for one breathless moment, and then everything shattered into silence. When the dust cleared, half the valley was gone, melted into glass and smoke. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, pain burning through every nerve. Sarah lay beside him, her face streaked with tears and light. She's gone, she whispered, her voice breaking. Ethan looked toward the crater where the Guardian had stood, now nothing but a faint glow deep beneath the ground. No, he said softly. She's part of it now. Sarah clutched her pendant, the last piece of her mother's sigil. She kept her promise, she murmured. She always said she'd bring peace even if it killed her. Above them, human rescue ships finally broke through the clouds. Descending cautiously, Ethan activated his weak signal beacon, though his hands trembled. They'll see us, Sarah said, her tone unsure. They'll see you, he corrected, and they'll know the truth. She shook her head. Your people will never trust mine, Ethan smiled faintly. Then they'll start with me. He stood, lifting her carefully as human marines rushed toward them. When the soldiers saw the alien girl in his arms, their weapons rose instantly. Ethan stepped forward, shouting over the storm, Stand down! She's not the enemy. She's the reason we're alive. The men hesitated, their eyes shifting between him and her glowing form. Then the clouds parted, revealing the dawn for the first time in weeks. The storm was gone, the creature was silent, and peace, fragile but real, and hung in the air. Sarah looked up at Ethan, her voice soft as the falling snow. What happens now? He looked toward the horizon where fire met sky. Now, he said quietly, we rebuild. Together. As the camera of the story faded out, the human fleet circled the valley, their lights reflecting off the alien ruins below. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. A human and two alien sisters defying war itself. One gone, one saved, and one changed forever. And somewhere deep beneath the ice, the Guardian slept once more. Its final memory not of destruction but of unity. The memory of a human heartbeat that refused to give up. The story of the last stand that would echo through the stars for centuries. The choice that changed the stars. The dawn that rose over the frozen moon was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The sky burned gold and violet, light spilling through the shattered clouds that once hid fleets of war. The valley below was quiet now, too quiet, filled with the echoes of what had been lost. Ethan stood on the ridge beside Sarah, the cold wind tugging at their torn uniforms, their shadows long and lonely across the snow. In the distance, the wreckage of the human fleet smoldered beside the broken hulls of the Keth Armada, half a world destroyed. Yet somehow peace had survived. Sarah's eyes glowed faintly as she stared toward the horizon. "Lyra should have been here to see this," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, his voice low. "She is here," he said, glancing at the faint shimmer that still pulsed beneath the ice. The echo of her energy fused with the ancient guardian. "She's part of the world now," he added, keeping it safe like she always did. Sarah smiled faintly, though tears slipped down her cheeks. "Then I'll never leave her," she said. No matter what happens next, before Ethan could answer, a low hum filled the air, the sound of descending ships. Dozens of small vessels appeared through the clouds, their insignias glowing silver and crimson. The Galactic Council, not soldiers but judges, diplomats, and witnesses of history. Ethan's heart tightened. This was the trial he'd been dreading. The galaxy would now decide whether peace was real, or whether he and Sarah would die for daring to create it. The ships landed in a circle of light, forming a ring around the survivors. From one of them emerged High Chancellor Myrix, a tall alien draped in golden armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Her voice carried the weight of 10 worlds. "Human Ethan Cole," she said, "and Sarah Vareth of the Exiled House, you are summoned before the Council to answer for the destruction of this moon and the death of thousands." Sarah stepped forward, her head bowed. "It wasn't destruction," she said softly. "It was freedom." "Freedom?" the Chancellor repeated coldly. "We see only ruin." Ethan clenched his fists, stepping beside Sarah. "You see what fear made," he said, his voice steady. "We didn't destroy your armies. We stopped a war your leaders began centuries ago." Murmurs rippled through the alien envoys, their eyes narrowing. "You speak boldly." "Human," one hissed. "But who gave you the right to decide what peace looks like?" Ethan pointed toward the horizon where the Guardian's glow still shimmered beneath the ice. "They did," he said. "Your ancestors and ours. This moon was their promise, proof that our races once worked together before the lies began." The Chancellor stared at him in silence, her gaze unreadable. "And what of the weapon you unleashed?" she asked finally. "It wasn't a weapon," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "It was a protector, my mother's creation, built to keep both our people safe. But your council killed her for believing in peace." The chamber fell silent, the truth slicing through the air like a blade. The Chancellor's expression faltered, the first crack of emotion crossing her face. "You speak of old crimes," she said, "buried by time." "Then dig them up," Ethan replied sharply, "because they're still bleeding." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sarah raised her hands, her palms glowing, and projected an image, the holographic memory from the crystal monolith. The council watched as her mother's voice filled the sky. "If you see this message, know that peace is worth dying for, that love between species is not weakness, but the only strength that endures." The hologram ended, leaving the entire assembly in silence. Even the wind seemed to stop, as if the world itself were listening. The Chancellor stepped forward slowly, her eyes on Sarah. "Your mother's name was Vareth Lysara," she said quietly. "She was once one of us." "And she died because of you," Sarah replied, voice trembling. "But I will not." Her light flared brighter, not in anger but resolve. "If you call me traitor, then I am proud to betray hatred." The crowd erupted, some shouting, others standing in awe. Ethan watched as the tide shifted, centuries of silence breaking in a single moment. One alien general knelt, his weapon lowered. "Perhaps the human is right," he said. "Perhaps we have forgotten who we once were." Others followed, one by one, until the Chancellor herself bowed her head. "Then let the record show," she said solemnly, "that the war ends here." But just as relief flooded Ethan's chest, a sharp sound split the air. A gunshot. Sarah gasped and stumbled, her body arching as a crimson beam tore through her shoulder. From the edge of the crowd, a Keth loyalist raised his weapon again, shouting, "No peace with humans, never!" Ethan dove toward Sarah, firing his own pistol, dropping the assassin where he stood. Blood stained the snow. hot against the cold. "Sarah," he shouted, holding her close. Her glow flickered, her hand trembling as it reached for his face. "It's all right," she whispered. "It's done now." Ethan shook his head, his eyes burning. "No, stay with me. Do you hear me? You can't leave me now." The Chancellor rushed forward, kneeling beside them. "Her body can't survive the atmosphere for long. She needs energy transfer." Ethan didn't hesitate. He pressed his palm to hers. Light burst between them, a blinding mix of human nanotech and alien energy. He felt her heartbeat fade, then rise again, syncing with his. Her eyes opened, glowing brighter than ever. "You gave me your strength," she whispered. "You gave me hope," he answered. The crowd watched in silence as the glow around them expanded, human light and alien fire intertwining, forming a new symbol above them. Two energies that once destroyed galaxies now pulsed together as one. The Chancellor looked up, tears glimmering in her eyes. "The prophecy of Lysera," she said softly. "The union that would heal the stars." When the light faded, Sarah stood on her own, healed but changed. Her once silver eyes now carried a faint human blue. Ethan's hair shimmered faintly with alien light. They looked at each other, no longer two enemies, but one story, one legacy. "So," Ethan said with a tired smile, "what do we tell them now?" Sarah smiled back. "Tell them," she said softly, "that peace was never found in the stars. It was found in us." The camera of the story would rise slowly above the crowd, showing thousands of aliens and humans kneeling together beneath the light of a reborn dawn. The world once torn by hatred was now bound by the heartbeat of two souls. And as the galaxy watched, a voice, Sarah's, echoed through every ship and every home. He faked sleep to see if we cared. And in the end, it was his heart that woke the stars. The screen fades to black. The legend of the human and the alien sisters begins. A story whispered across galaxies for generations. A reminder that even in the darkest war, one act of compassion can change the universe forever.